I would buy this car with my own money. And before you think this is a paid review, it's not. The views here expressed are entirely my own. Now, with that out of the way, the customary intro.
Hi everyone, Greg from WapCar, and this is the story of why I think the Mazda 3 is the perfect car for me and a small but important segment of buyers, the car enthusiasts. You see, us enthusiasts are a weird bunch. We always go on and on about how we'd buy a car that makes us feel special. Sounds like a load of nonsense, but if you know, you know. And a car doesn't have to be fast or expensive to be special. It just has to have that sense of engineering integrity and or that geeky vibe that gives us the impression that the people behind the car really love cars and they're not just in it to make money. So I won't delve into the details or tech specs on what you get or don't get with this car. Just know that they are decently competitive. But if you want to know the nitty-gritty and the details of the tech specs and all that, just head on over to WapCar.my and we've got you covered. Today, I want to talk more about how this car makes me feel, and I hope that by the end of this video, you feel the same way too. And speaking of making me feel things, just look at it. Now I know, styling is subjective, totally agree, but I dare you to find anyone who thinks that the Mazda 3 is an ugly car, especially here in liftback form. Now, I'll also be the first to admit, I'll go on record and say that how a car looks is very important to me. It can drive well, it can sound great, it can be the best value for money, but if it looks like the dog's breakfast, regurgitated, then no thanks. What sets Mazda's design apart from the competition? Well, by now I'm sure you're familiar with Mazda's KODO Soul of Motion design theme. We've seen this term thrown rather quite frequently about, but what's the gist of it? Well, according to Ikuo Maeda, it's not about a singular model, first of all. It's more about when you line up several Mazdas together, you notice a design direction that's unique but consistent. To quote him, when you cook Japanese foods, the way you cook dashi will have a significant influence on how the foods taste. Making a perfect dashi is a good analogy for what we're doing. We use the form to decide on the role of each model in the Mazda lineup, and that inspires the designers to visualize what the final picture looks like. Now, Mr. Maeda may not be a chef, but as the general manager of Mazda's design division, I think he knows what he's on about. Oh, by the way, he was also the head designer of the Mazda RX-8, and his father, well, he designed the RX-7. With the current Mazda 3, there's a sense of purposeful design. Nothing extra is here. No unnecessary slats, vents, spoilers. It's a singular look and one that will stand the test of time very well, I reckon. Every line, every crease is there to make the car look more purposeful, more organic even. Yes, it may sound like I'm spewing marketing rubbish, but that's the gist of the whole KODO philosophy. To breathe life into a car, to elicit a response. You take one look at this car, and I bet you'll go, yep, I bought the right car. Step inside and just soak it in. Now, some might say it's cramped. I would say it's intimate. Some might argue that it's impractical. I would say it's focused. Now, say what you want about it, but I reckon this is one of the best interiors at this price point, or maybe even a class above. Because you see, once again, Mazda has successfully designed the cockpit around the driver. There's nothing here to distract you. No fancy ambient lighting that's reminiscent of a nightclub. Nothing overwhelms you. Nothing makes you go, wow. We see the KODO philosophy, or rather, the human-centric design being applied here. Because the foundation has to be absolutely right. Get it wrong, and no amount of screens or touchpad or fancy trim is going to save you. It's calm. No sensory overload or unnecessary elements. In fact, Mazda has opted to put in what you need and only what you need to get comfortable, which is near perfect ergonomics, near perfect pedal placement. Nothing more, nothing less. And in fact, they've gone to such great lengths to ensure this that even the center armrest has what Mazda calls a karakuri mechanism, so that your arm isn't really tilted at a weird angle when you use it. Now, the seats may look plain, yeah, perhaps so, but did you know that they've been designed to hold the occupants in place, obviously, as well as offer support for your pelvis and maintain the natural S-shaped curvature of your spine? Seriously, from the cushion to the seat back, the whole thing has been designed so that almost anyone of almost any body shape can sit in it and begin to naturally adjust their body's center of gravity without any conscious effort. Now, this in turn allows us to stabilize our necks and our heads more naturally. Then you look ahead and around, and especially at night, Mazda has worked to reduce visual noise as much as possible. Now, what this means is that the white LED lighting inside has been designed to illuminate the cabin across a very tight color spectrum to best showcase the interior. Part of it also comes down to making the driver feel at ease again. The instrument meter, for instance, is slightly brighter than the rest of the cluster and switchgear backlight to subconsciously give a more focused driving environment. And while some people may complain about the lack of drama, everything you touch feels very, very good. The leather on the door cards, the dashboard, the armrest, there's even a nice leather pad here for you to rest your knee. I know I get the feeling that the Mazda 3 is like that quiet, confident kid at school who gets good grades and excels in sports and is friends with everybody. You don't need to shout or go around making a scene when you know you're much more capable than your peers. But it's not perfect though. While it's very snug and you can sit pretty low, visibility becomes a bit of an issue, particularly when you want to do a head check because the C-pillar really does get in the way. Now, what about boot space? Yes, and now, on to the part where the Mazda 3 really shines. Now, I'm not the fastest driver around, I'll tell you that. But right here, right now, seated inside the Mazda 3, I definitely feel like one. And it's because what separates a great driver's car from a good driver's car is that it feels good at all speeds. And the Mazda 3 is a great driver's car. Okay, elephant in the room. You know that torsion beam setup that you see people complaining about? Come on, get real. It's more than enough. And if you think a torsion beam is inferior, last I checked, cars like the Renault Megane used a torsion beam, and I don't think anybody's complaining about that car's handling, right? Now, there's a very good reason for that, and it's down to reduced cabin noise and vibrations. You see, if Mazda went with a more complex multi-link setup, there's a higher chance of vibrations getting transmitted into the cabin, but with a simpler torsion beam setup, that issue gets nullified. And efforts to improve the car's refinement goes way beyond that. So what Mazda has done is that they've reduced the number of holes in the Skyctiv chassis to prevent sound waves from getting transmitted inwards towards the cabin. You see, a great driver's car is more than just horsepower, it's more than just how flat a car can corner. It has to feel good, it has to sound good, it has to be comfortable, yet confidence-inspiring. I guess what I'm trying to say is that a great driver's car is like a good sparring or dance partner. There's lots of give and take. You know, you give, the car responds, you feel it, you take it on board, and then you give some more, and then on, and on, and on. At the end of the day, when this review is over, when you and I and the rest of us car people are firmly back in reality, it's very comforting to know that the Mazda 3 exists amongst all these dreary, sensible cars. It's not perfect, this car, and in an odd twist, that is exactly why it is so appealing to people like us. Because let's be frank, this car is never going to outsell its more mainstream competitors, and maybe it's all the more better for it. This car really is flawed. It has quite a few flaws as far as the sensible part of car ownership is concerned. But flawed as it may be, that doesn't make the Mazda 3 any less of a great car. Because you know what else has flaws? Me. You. Our loved ones. We're all flawed one way or another. We're all organic beings with a soul. We are not robots. Does the Mazda 3 have a soul?